All right, hello everybody. Welcome to UK CORRAL, the podcast that reviews every comic book ever written by a British writer. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen, as always been joined by Adamantium.
Miracle!
That's right. And for the first time ever last week, we decided to split the episode up because, well, gosh darn it, Alan Moore comics are just so dense, they take so long to talk about. So, oh yeah, we also forgot, we forgot we have another co-host here. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about Nice Man. I don't believe it.
That's the antithesis of being nice.
Yeah, Nice Man. How could I forget you?
I'm just too nice.
That's a problem.
Nice. That's it.
Thank you for joining us, Nice Man.
What should I say? Nice to see you. Nice.
There you go. So yeah, like as I was saying, we had to split last week's episode up into 2 episodes. This one should be a little bit shorter because I think these are a little bit less dense, but we'll see how it goes. And usually we divide up the honors of summarizing the issues, and usually we start off with Adamantium. Adamantium, would you like to do the honors this week?
Oh, usually when someone says we usually, then they'll proceed to go into a different change of the formula. But I will continue on with the trend. It's fine.
Okay.
But yes, so of course we did our last episode on the first part of book 2 of Miracleman. So please check that out to get up to date on this.
And we should say this is now beginning the new material that began after Alan Moore started writing for DC.
Yes, so, at some point there was confusion over the naming of the character because of copyright issues and what it was published under in terms of its British and then its North American release. Here on in, just to make sure, it's pretty consistently now titled Miracleman from this point forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So where we left off was with Miracle Dog, and with our friend here, Mike Moran, who's about to be eviscerated. Essentially, Gargonzo, or Gargunza, there's multiple ways, I love pronouncing it, but has triggered a hypnotic suggestion with a single word that has prevented Miracleman from manifesting. So Moran is there, and now he's basically at the behest of this animal that's about to attack him. So there's a very interesting framing device where we're getting, imagine if this was a camera. I don't always like making an analogy between film, cinematography, and then panels in a comic, but you can really see the intention of a camera almost panning around the head of Mr. Cream in this future state as he's thinking about what's about to transpire, and then going back to what would be our present, where he's witnessing basically the threat that's being revealed, which is that Gargunza is making Mike flee this beast, this Miracle Dog, while he takes away his wife, Liz, to be experimented on and perhaps even give birth to this superhuman child that he plans to transplant his brain into. Yes, I know, comic books. So with that said, the chase is on. And it's very emotional. We see basically Mike and Liz give a farewell, acknowledging there's no way he's going to live. And there's a real sense of tension going on as he's running through the jungle, as we see the narrative shift between this kind of contemporary and future tense of what Cream is saying to Mike and then what he's reflecting on. Cream basically strips down to his skivvies and hands Mike a gun, saying, I need you to survive. This is important. And if you remember, in the previous first part of the book, there was a series of dreams Cream was having, a real great sense of character development over his past and alluding to the sort of fatalism which he had, where he dreamt about his death. And this correlates a lot to a lot of colonial imagery of hung dead bodies around him. And you're kind of getting this legacy of the oppression of people coming from his lineage of this black individual, which ties into, like I said, a colonial theme with his particular character, which was intriguing because it gives a little bit more meat to him compared to just the average side character in a superhero quest. But anyway, going forward, he's running through the jungle and he's having these shifting visions between his dream and reality. And he ends up seeing the skeletal figure which punctuated his dreams, the death head, that was the announcement of his elimination. And that coincides with him running into the Miracle Dog, which swipes him. And this is where we get this horrific reveal where the panning around of Mr. Cream's head is actually a very clever shot of showing his decapitated head within the jungle grounds. It happens so quickly that there's actually a few moments of conscious thought before he dies. What a horrifying revelation, and just really showing the viciousness of this dog that then eats Cream's body and his head and is about to pursue Mike. Now, Mike has a gun that was given to him, and he proceeds to aim and fire at the dog, but it does nothing. The dog is too quick. This is a super-powered Miracle Dog, so all it does...
Are you going to keep going?
Well,
yes, he's already jumped into the.
Yeah, what do we wait? Let's talk about this chapter.
You know what, let's just say
he's on a roll.
Yeah,
he's on a roll. You know.
But yeah, so tension's high.
Yeah, we'll get so first thing we have to say about this chapter is there is I think a 3 or 4 year gap in between this one and the last one. Obviously, the artist is different. Okay, so we've gone through Gary Leach, Alan Davis, a little bit of John Ridgway. And now, unfortunately, we have Chuck Beacom. And I'm sorry, by Miracleman standards, this art, in my opinion, is terrible. If it was a random no-name indie comic, of course, it'd be fine. The storytelling's fine. But compared to Alan Davis and Gary Leach, I think this is terrible. Nice Man, what do you think?
Well, let's be nice about it.
Okay.
Let's say that, it's earnest. It's an earnest effort. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this is really difficult. They're difficult for Alan Moore. This is like, what did we say, 4 years later, at least?
Something like that.
Something like this. I'd like to check out the exact gap, but I mean, you just got to pick it up years later. And then the poor guy, Chuck, he's seen the previous issues with Alan Moore and Ridgway and, Gary Leach. He's like, oh my, I've got to follow those guys. So he's trying to be faithful. He's trying to capture their characters and the essence of their characters. And it's really not that bad. I think it's not that bad. And so I think it's a very earnest effort, and it tells the story, doesn't it? I agree with you. It's not up to this. It's not up to what we have come to expect. It's unfortunate. It kind of renders something which is magically good, more ordinary. But it's still a good, earnest effort. So I'd like to give him that regarding the art. Believe it or not, we'll come back to it, but I have a slight problem with some of Alan Moore's writing here.
Gasp. Okay.
Yep.
First,
we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Adamantium, do you want to talk about the art?
I'm going to agree mostly with Nice Man, which is the fact that I think it's very serviceable. There's nothing egregious or horrible about the art. In fact, if I had no context, let's say theoretically, this was the first issue or story of Miracleman I ever picked up, I would probably be quite impressed by the maturity of the story writing, of the creativity. If we go forward to the panels where Cream is running away and we have this shift between his dream world and reality, the next page, you can even see the way the panels curve upwards, and you have these not clear boxes, but these curved delineations between the dreamscape and reality, kind of matching the curvature of Cream's arm when he's running as he's reaching out in that one panel, and the final one with the skeleton figure reaching out. I think there's some good creativity there. And if we move to the next page, I think there's also some interesting panel layout with these increasingly larger growing panels on the top left-hand side that are showing more and more of the bush, as if showing the perception of his vision as he's running toward the tree line. And again, as mentioned, I don't always like when comic writers, or I should say illustrators, attempt to replicate cinematography in panels. I think comics are their own medium, and they should use their visuals by the standards of that medium. But I think it's still creatively done and creates that sense of a surprise of, there is a shock when you see Cream in the end with his decapitated head there. To me, I think it's more than serviceable. we would not probably be having this discussion if it wasn't for the incredible art in the preceding issues and books. So for me, I don't want to give any sort of insult to this art. I think it's actually quite good, but we're going from looking at, like, we're talking about legends in their own right of comic illustrators, and then going to here, which is a very fine, very good, I would even say near excellent comic illustrator, but that just does not reach the standard of what's come before. So
By the
I
way,
just want to say that. Yeah.
do you know who Chuck Beckham is?
No.
It's Chuck Austen. You know, the
Right.
writer, comics writer. Chuck Beckham is his birth name.
I honestly had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considered by Paul O'Brien to be the worst writer in X-Men history, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, given what I'm seeing here, prefer his illustration to his writing.
Okay, you know
Yes.
what? Here's the thing. I will say this. I actually like his line work. Like the inking all in here is good, right? Like the texture and the shadows. This is all solid. All, here on the monster's face, on Gargunza here, it looks great. The two biggest problems are the anatomy is inconsistent from panel to panel. So like that's not quite right. Like proportions, like he's just a young artist. He's probably amateur, just starting out. Okay, fine. That's a big mistake, or problem. But I think the other weakness is that it doesn't fit with the style of any of the other art. And I believe when this collaboration happened, Alan Moore actually said that he felt that Chuck Beekham's art didn't have enough black in it, because in British art at this time there was a lot of shadow and black, and this is the opposite of that. We see a lot of empty space just filled in with color, which is not what Gary Leach or Alan Davis was like, right? Just something to think about. So anyway, I'm trying to imagine if this was drawn by Alan Davis. That's how I'm trying to judge the writing. And to me, I honestly think it's fine. I don't see any drop in quality at all. I always have remembered this device of opening up with Mr. Cream with the, just on his face, and then the reveal at the end that he's actually been decapitated. I think that's a great device. So I have no issues at all with the story. But nice man, it sounds like you do.
Just one thing. I was there, as I've said before, when Warrior #1 came out, and I bought it.
Right.
And I was very, very impressed by this, Miracleman. And Mike Moran, who was telling Liz, "You're making fun of me, you're mocking me. I'm telling you, I know this is true. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's true. There was a Miracleman, and I was that guy, and a young Miracleman, and so on and so on." And so Alan Moore did a great job with Gary Leach of showing him as a bit of an ordinary man. I hate to use a cliche, everyman, but you know what I mean? But he wasn't, if the term is correct, he wasn't a schlub. He wasn't some pot-bellied loser, as a certain person might say. He was just a regular guy, that's all. He was a regular guy. And here, look how he's portrayed. He's got nothing to offer. He's just, he's got nothing. He's got no character, he's got apparently no spirit. He's badly overweight. And look how Cream squeezes his face. This is not, what's his name? What's his name?
Michael Moran.
Mike Moran. This is not Mike Moran. This is a poor imitation of Mike Moran. This is not Mike Moran from Warrior #1.
But is that the fault of the writing or the art?
Well, Alan Moore wrote these words, "You're a weakling and a coward." No, he wasn't. He was just a man, an ordinary man, who has a wife, and he keeps having these dreams and realizes that he was something else, and he is something else. But yeah, we saw him in Warrior 1 in his pajamas. And here he is, still in his pajamas from Warrior 1, his pajama bottoms and his vest. But here it says, look, you're a fool, you're a weakling, you're a coward. Inside you there is a God. No, this is complete disrespect of Mike Moran.
Well, when we're looking at literature, the main thing to keep in mind, particularly fiction, where is the source of this coming from? Is it an omnipresent narrator? Is it the voice of objective reason? Or is this coming from another character with a motivation? This is coming from Cream, who has an
Right.
experience of trying to manipulate individuals. He's basically trying to manipulate Mike Moran so he can flee, either through intimidation or some other tactics, maybe reason, maybe who knows what, but essentially trying to attempt for him to persevere and live as long as possible. I don't think this is an inconsistency. I actually argue, no, this is just more characterization. And you see the cool reasoning of Cream in spite of all of this. And I will say what we're about to see, which I almost spoiled with getting a little too enthusiastic with my recap, is the fact that, no, he's not really a coward. He's not a complete failure. He's just a normal man, like you said, and so therefore he has limitations. But he shows ingenuity in the next issue. And, for that, I just want to argue, no, I don't think this is an assassination of this character at all or a misinterpretation of him. I just feel there's a source that this dialogue's coming from. It's from Cream. He has an objective as to why he's saying this. Now, if Cream started tap dancing and singing a song and doing something differently to portray this to Moran, I don't know, maybe that would sway me to your argument, but I just don't really see a lot of inconsistency so far.
Well, I think it can't be, your point can't be argued against because you're right, it's point of view. And this is the point of view of Cream. This is Cream saying it, not Alan Moore, right? This is Cream saying it. Cream is regarding him. You're a fool, you're a weakling and a coward. That doesn't mean he is. However, the visual representation seems to suggest that he is a weakling and a coward. Maybe that's my problem with it, because I don't dispute at all that those words are coming from Cream. That's his point of view. But the visual representation just makes him look like that. You see how he is here on this page when Liz is going to be separated from him. And of course, I mean, he's sad about it, but it's just that just isn't him. It's not him. This is another character.
Well,
I'll agree to disagree on that. I think there is consistency, but I think my point, I will argue more for what we see in the next issue that actually informs more of his character.
Right, because I agree with you again there, because it's true. In the end, it wasn't because of a gun. It was because of his ingenuity. And that's no fool. That's no coward. That's no dummy.
In fact, I'd even, I was sorry to interject, Iceman.
No.
I was just going to say, I even think the fact that he's willing to go on this sort of chase to have the dog hunt for him to try to waylay safety for Liz and the baby as long as possible is also a sort of an example of a self-sacrifice, regardless of what Cream's interpretation is.
Yeah, yes. But I wish we had Warrior #1 visually, set alongside and
well, I can pull it up if you guys can hold on a sec. I was going to do it, but here he is. Look at that. Oh my gosh. He looks exactly the same.
because that's not Warrior #1.
No, sure, but this is Alan Davis, and I mean, looks suspiciously similar. Here,
He does. But Gary Leach drew Warrior #1.
Yeah, I don't have that one handy.
So,
but if you put these two side by side, it's pretty darn close, right?
No, absolutely. No.
Anyway.
All right.
That being said, here's the thing about Eclipse, okay? That kind of pissed me off. It's the first issue back with new material, and instead of following this new chapter up with another new chapter, they do an out-of-sequence reprint that they could have used in a previous issue. Now, that being said, it is drawn by John Ridgway, so I'm not going to complain. Nice Man, would you like to do this one? I mean, it's pretty easy. It's silent, right?
Thank you, Mike. It's like, look, you can't screw this one up, surely.
Right.
So let's see. It's a very sweet, very charming. It's a young Miracleman story. The first one in how many years? A long time, right? Since the 50s. And as you said, beautifully drawn by John Ridgway, And young Miracleman is a male delivery guy. Is he the military mail delivery or just mail delivery guy?
I'm not sure.
And yeah, but he's on his motorbike and he takes it into the this office, and there's a cute woman behind the desk, receptionist. He takes a shine to her. He's kind of blushing, and she notices that he has taken a shine to her, and he's blushing. So he decides, you know what? I'm going to really impress this woman. So he does says Miracleman, and he changes, of course, into young Miracleman, doesn't he? But when he changes, it says woof, which I thought was kind of interesting, like woof. I guess that's the sound effect. And so how is he going to impress her exactly? Well, he's going to leave the planet. Really? He's going to fly away from Earth? Yes, because in the 1950s, these are the kind of stories you could get away with. He's just going to happily fly from Earth to across the galaxy, and till he reaches Pluto. And fortunately, in Pluto, the signage is in English. So
Yeah.
apparently, those the British they got everywhere. Pluto welcomes careful drivers, and and he comes across the Queen, or he's made a beeline for the Queen, who is in a very scantily clad attire, maybe like something from Buck Rogers or something like this, Flash Gordon, and he steals her necklace. Really? Yeah, he's a thief. He's stealing her necklace. And then, thanks, smiles, evades angry Plutonians, if that's their name, and off he goes, flying back to Earth. Isn't it great how you can travel this quickly with no protection whatsoever? He's just got his skimpy outfit on, no problem. Breathing, I've no idea how he does it. Protection from the galaxy, no idea. Anyway, so he grabs the necklace, off he goes back to Earth. It's all very, very nice and sweet. And he comes into the office, says Miracleman changes back to his mail carrier uniform, and the woman sees he's come back with a gift for her. It's in his satchel. He opens the satchel, and sadly, the necklace has melted. Because, of course, it's an ice necklace from Pluto. He's not very bright. And it's melted. And she's very disappointed and slams the door, and off he goes on his little World War II, what can we say, motorbike? What's it called? Kind of motorbike.
Moped? Something.
Yeah. So it's very, very cute. Very, very cute. But, of course, dumb as hell. Don't you think so?
No, the story's dumb?
Well, I mean,
no, I don't think so.
Because, I mean, come on. There's no struggle here. I know it's a charming little story, but
I think there is, and I'll tell you what I think, because I've read this many times, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the cool thing about this story is that it goes back to, like you said, 1950s storytelling, where there was no thought into realism. You could, step outside your window and all of a sudden you're flying through the solar system. There's aliens there, and without any comment, they just happen to be flying by in these little ships. There's a princess on Pluto. And it's an interesting characterization that he chooses to steal the necklace. But what I think is cool about it is that everything does seem effortless for this god, yet even so, he can still fail. Because he's still bound by the laws of physics. So even though he can breathe in space and he can get to Pluto and back in 30 seconds, it's interesting because Alan Moore can still apply physics in reality to him trying to charm this girl, and he can still fail. So I think it makes it an interesting story.
Yes, but it's only because it's like a 1950s pastiche. Because on the one hand, you can't have this ice necklace melt because it obeys the laws of physics. And with no effort at all, he's zoomed off to Pluto and he's back within, 10 minutes or something?
I think even less, but I don't know. I don't know. I just think that I think it just shows once again there's a way to do 1950s stories well, and I think this is an example.
Yeah, I still enjoyed it. It was entertaining. It's dialogue free, right? Dialogue and thought balloon free. It's all in the action apart from the Miracleman, and
Right.
it's funny. It's funny.
Adamantium.
It's okay. I have nothing to add. I think I'm going to veer more towards Nice Man's thoughts. It's a fun little pastiche of what it is. I don't think it really adds a lot. When I think about the sort of retro pastiche-laden vignettes from earlier Miracle Man books, I felt like there was more of a subtext to them, an understanding of a contrast between this sort of frivolity and this lightness compared to the darkness and the sort of stakes of the contemporary run. I feel that's absent here. It really is just an aside. It's not offensive. It's not bad. It's just, I'll be honest, I completely forgot about this. So, take that for what it's worth.
See, I think the one thing I'll add, and I'm not going to harp on the story of how great it is, but I think the thing that's cool is that, when you're trying to come up with stories for superheroes, a lot of bad writers tend to fall back on the trap. It was especially in the 80s when I was growing up of like Dr. Octopus is going to rob a bank, or this villain's going to come back and kidnap Mary Jane, or whatever it may be. But I like the idea that you can tell a story about a superhero that has no villain, it has no fist fights, it has no guest appearances, it has no cliffhangers, it has no events, it has no gimmicks. It's just a story, because you could do the story on a street corner in America or England or Canada about a guy trying to impress a girl, and this exact same story could happen, except it wouldn't be science fiction, and it would work. So I think it's like taking a universal type of story and just adding a science fiction element to it. So I think it's cool.
Well, when I said it was dumb, like kind of dumb on his part not to realize this.
Yeah.
This is also self-criticism, because I once took.
Oh no. Pluto.
I once got an ice lolly for a girl in my primary school, and of course, when I tried to give it to her, I found that it had been melting in my bag.
See, there you go. Okay, I have one too. I've told the story on podcasts before. Here's the quick version. When I was a kid, I was raised Ukrainian Catholic, and the priest came to our house to bless the house. And when he comes over, he stays at your house for like an hour. My mom served him tea and probably food, and we all sat at the table. My mom, my brother, myself, and the priest. And he gave us each a chocolate. And I took the chocolate, and I was so nervous that I kept my hands underneath the kitchen table and just fidgeted with this chocolate for an hour. So then at the end of the hour, when the priest went to go leave, he put his shoes on and he shook me and my brother's hands. But when he went to go shake my hand, like an episode of Seinfeld, I was just like this, with my hands behind my back, because my hands were covered in melted chocolate, so I couldn't shake his hand. Anyway,
Did you
so
get
there
in
you go.
trouble?
No.
Trouble?
I think, I don't know if I explained it after or if I explained it on the spot, but I'm sure everybody had a laugh. So anyway.
Just also another quick insert here, because you know how disappointed you were that the story was interrupted
Sure.
with this, but the reason for this was that where the Eclipse offices were, they were flooded.
Right.
And because they were flooded, it delayed everything. And because of that, instead of featuring the birth of Miracleman's daughter, instead it was a modified Mick Anglo era strip.
But that was later. That was in issue
Was it?
8. Yeah, that was issue 8. That's coming up. We'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll
So
see.
this was just here for fun, not for any reason to do with the flood?
No, this was just to fill pages, I think, because they just needed to fill pages, so they had this extra story left over.
It was for Mike, really.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah, it was for
But
that.
this is Alan Moore, so obviously. But anyway,
Okay.
okay. So let's jump. We'll do the next chapter. I'll do this one. Okay, so now we're in Eclipse Miracleman number 7. We've got a Paul Galassi cover there.
Yeah.
Why is he with Uncle Sam?
Yeah, good question. Anyway, so it picks up at the end of the cliffhanger of the previous issue, and we're getting some narration describing what Michael Moran is going through. He's grappling with the fact that this miracle dog, how easily it tore apart what's his name, Mr. Cream, and he realizes that the only thing he has to fight back with is a gun. So he takes the gun, he fires at the dog, and what ends up happening is the miracle dog not only snatches the gun out of his hand, but it bites two of his fingers off. Um, then we just cut back to Gargunza and what's his wife's name again?
Liz.
I don't Liz, back at the base, and Gargunza is just going about his business. He has absolutely no emotions about anything that's going on. He doesn't care. And we get a little Alan Moore kind of pun where Gargunza is eating a piece of fruit and commenting how the dog will be coming back soon because he's eaten. I love those little, parallels there. So anyway, so as Miracle Dog is enjoying the fingers that he just bit off of Michael Moran starts to run away. And and then we cut back to the Gargunza's guards who are going through trying to basically find Michael Moran and Mr. Cream. They come across a dead body, and the one guy is like, well, I don't know which one it is. Is it Michael Moran or is it Mr. Cream? And the guy says, idiot, is it the black one or the white one? It's the black. The white one, no doubt, lies dead nearby. So then they keep going, and there's this exchange at the end. When it's interesting where this guy says he's talking about Miracleman, and he says he was a vision, that blonde hair, those blue eyes. When I was a youth, our leader spoke of a new kind of man, an Ubermensch, ja. Yeah. I saw him then in my mind. I saw him again tonight. We waited for him to come for 40 years, and then we killed him. It's always the way, Heinz. It is always the way. I love that. Anyway, cut back to Miracleman just about to get eaten, but he thankfully remembers. He's trying to remember what was the magic word that Gargunza used to change him into Miracle Dog. What was the word? And he remembers Steppenwolf. Just at that moment, Miracle Dog turns back into the same puppy that we saw not just in the previous chapters, but earlier in this book, right? When he was introduced as just someone that Gargunza happened to be playing with. And then Michael Moran narrates, I pick up a rock from the grass at my feet and smash its brains out. And off panel, we see the limp body of the dead dog at the bottom of the panel there, of the page there. Then we cut back to Gargunza's goons. And then just at that moment, it looks like it's been an hour because Miracleman is back. And he approaches the goons, grabs two of them by the head, and smashes them together. And I thought that was the end. Oh, then he goes up. I love this scene. Then he goes up to the third guy. And this is the guy that was talking about him, referring to him as a god earlier. 40 years over, man. You have come at last. And then in the next panel, yes, you can go now. He just puts his hand through him. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my screen here. And then he says, you, Gargunza, you. We see the POV of him flying towards the base. He smashes through the wall. He smashes through the wall, kills a bunch of the goons, smashes through the ground, then comes up through the floor, grabs Gargunza by the neck, flies up into the atmosphere, and then kisses him and throws him back at the earth. And as Gargunza goes through the atmosphere, he burns up. And by the time he lands, he's just a skull. And that is the end of this chapter. And it's quite awesome. Adamantium, what did you think?
I loved it. Absolutely. It is, I will say, it's violent, and it's a very brutal issue. With that said, though, you get that sense of determination that's happening both for Mike Moran and for Miracleman once he makes that transformation. And you see that he exacts that same sort of callous elimination of the guards as Mike Moran did for the dog. You see that parallel between the two, which is interesting because before we've always had this schism where Miracleman and Mike Moran are separate people. But here we're actually seeing parallels between them, especially for both their interest in protecting Liz and getting revenge on Gargunza. and that final sequence where he lifts Gargunza up into the sky, because the entirety of Gargunza's mission has been transcendence, transcendence to make it past the confines of mortality. But here, Miracleman's offering another type of transcendence. Also, I love the little touch that using his speed, he crushes his larynx and his vocal cords before he can say that word that would siphon off his power. Again, that psychological trigger. So with that done, he's safe and he flies him into the atmosphere, administering a kiss, kind of this full circle moment, as if indicating, you were my father, you were the thing that created me, you breathed the life into me, and now I give you this kiss of death, and I give death to you, the thing that you had been fighting for so long. It's a very visually, it could come across as silly to see a superhero take this short old man and toss him from the stratosphere towards the earth, but the prose, the intensity of what happened before makes it very effective. And by the time we get to the end, I think we really see what makes Miracleman such a powerful comic in my estimation. And I love this final requiem for Gargunza, this major threat, this villain, arguably one of only two villains in Miracleman, meeting his end in the most unceremonious fashion. I thought it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Nice, man.
Yes, it is great stuff. You've got to love it when he's just about to be eaten, chewed up, and spat out by the miracle dog, and he just looks up, and Mike Moran has the wherewithal to stay calm enough to say Steppenwolf.
Mm-hmm.
Bang. That dog is now just a whimpering little dog. And unfortunately, he then has to bludgeon the little dog to death.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the little dog's fault, but he has no choice. So in that sense, it's quite violent. And then how great when he grabs Gargunza by the throat, because Gargunza is saying ab, right? He's about to say abrax ab, but he gets him just in time, so he can't say anything. Then to Chuck Austen's credit, we have that very good storytelling. Maybe Alan Moore laid it out or told him exactly how he wanted it, but still it's executed well. Of course, the kissing of the creator scene is almost directly from Blade Runner, right? When, what's the guy's name in Blade Runner?
But Rutger Hauer?
Yes, but he plays,
I can't remember his name.
but you know what I mean, though.
But the main replicant, and he goes to kiss the
Right.
head of the robotics company, yes.
The Tyrell Corporation that
Yes.
created them and put in the, yes, you will die after 6 years or whatever it was. And then kisses him and then crushes his head. So it was in that vein. And it was great to see that sequence at the end, wasn't it? Of Gargunza traveling through space and burning up, so that in the very last panel you just get the skull. But to top it all off, it's Alan Moore, right? So we don't just get that. We get starlight, star bright, first star that I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might have the wish I wish tonight. It's perfect, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect contrast with the visual and the reality of what's happening.
And Mike, I want to bring up one other thing, because we did talk about these like Ersatz Nazis that were talking about how this was meant to be the Overman, the Ubermensch, and this was meant to be the new coming of what their leader had promised them. And we know, as comic fans, I think all of us, an appropriation, unfortunately, that happens far too often from the right and the extreme right of taking what are supposed to be heroic figures and reappropriating them as some sort of signifier of power, of strength, because that's all they see it for. Whether it be the obvious candidates that I always see are Captain America, Thor, Superman, people trying to appropriate them as these sort of fascistic icons. But the thing is, with those characters, they don't represent that. No matter how much these extreme right contingencies want to co-opt that, the strength that these characters have isn't just physical, it's moral. It's what they're fighting for. And I love what this comic does, which is to show this idealized Übermensch that these Nazis are talking about, it doesn't care about you. It is not your protector. It is not your realization. And if you really did have this thing that you thought would be the Earth's absolute of entities, it would see you as no more as a bug than anything else. You are no superior race. You are just fallible as anything else, and that's shown as indiscriminately available as Miracleman crushes the two skulls together of the two, and then just puts his hand directly through the chest of the other, kind of showing, no, do not assume anything because of this signifying you're giving me. Do not represent you. I am something else. I am something beyond you. And I love when writers can do that. You know, not to split hairs here, but too often we get a lot of people avoiding discursions around these political polemics, especially in this day and age. This is a comic set back in the early 90s or late 80s. I forget exactly when this issue was published.
Late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, late 80s. And Alan Moore already going, no, I'm not catering to this fascistic nationalist sort of mentality. Let's show these people exactly what I think of them. So kudos to Moore for that.
Well, I do love this issue, but I have to make a comment on the art because I already talked about the art in the previous chapter. I actually thought the first opening pages, they were a little bit better because, as Moore pointed out, there's more black, there's more ink, there's more shadow, there's more night. However, once we get to this page, I mean, just comparing this to Gary Leach's famous splash page of Miracleman's reappearance, it just can't compare. I think this page is pretty rough here. The faces, the line, like the shadows. This stuff is okay, but and this is all Moore. This is all Moore telling him exactly what to draw here. So I can't give him any credit for that. But I just think that he's out of his element. He's just not up to the task. And I think the problem I see here is that this figure looks like a mannequin. It has no weight smashing through this floor. There should be more of an impact like Kirby would do. And then when we get to here, I know that they're in space, but the way he's holding them up, this doesn't feel like a human body. It just feels like a piece of driftwood. There's no sense of gravity, so to speak.
Well, I mean, they are in space.
Yeah, I know, and I was thinking about that as I was saying it, but
I want to say I respect your points, and I think they're valid. You're finding that this art's not of the caliber we saw before. I really like the art in this issue. More so than the preceding one. I think I do agree. Moore probably gave layouts and ideas of where we're going, but Moore did not do the line work. Moore did not pencil. Moore did not ink. You have to give some credit, no matter how much you might hate Austen's writing, for at the very least what he was capable of in this issue. I think this is the best art he did in Miracleman that I saw. This particular issue. It doesn't get better. I'll leave it at that. But this is my favorite example of what he's done in here. And I will actually argue as we get on to the end of this book, I think there's worse art that we're going to see.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, I agree.
Well, we'll get to that. So now we're going to jump to number 8, and this is the issue you were talking about, Paul, where it starts out with a splash page, picking up where the last issue left off, but then, what's her name? Kat Ironwood?
I think it's very hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
I forget the exact pronunciation. It's not the Y. The Y doesn't get pronounced.
Okay. Well, in any case, she jumps in and explains about the flood. So now, again, I'm not a comic book publisher, but if I had an issue with no new material, I just wouldn't publish an issue. But instead, they decided to publish an issue of Mick Anglo reprints, and which is kind of just, I mean, I still bought the issue, but it's just a waste of space, in my opinion. So,
but I mean, at least it's an attempt to provide some entertainment. Do you remember Moonlighting, the TV show?
Of course.
Right? There was a writer's strike, but they still went on. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd still went on, and they did a kind of theater duo piece for the cameras, and that was actually entertaining. And then do you remember the Howard the Duck issue that Steve Gerber missed the deadlines and then just provided text? And they put illustrations to that. So, I still appreciated it. And this just opening up and seeing Kat addressing the readers directly. I think she is, isn't she? In
Yeah,
what she
she
says.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I like it.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Whose turn is it? Adam?
Yeah, I'll take this up. And this is Rick, and I don't want to mispronounce the name, Veitch.
Yeah. But we should point out the cover is John Totalman.
Yes.
Totalman does a fantastic cover.
This is amazing. Yes.
Which is very misleading for what's about to be seen when we open up the issue.
Yes.
This is true. This is true. Okay.
Attention parents, this issue contains graphic images of childbirth. Right?
Let me just say, how bold of a comic to actually show unmitigated issues of childbirth. But anyway, this is the fallout after the ending of Gargunza. So Liz awakens and she's trying to figure out what's happened because last she remembered, Mike was sent out being attacked by the Miracle Dog. She awakes trying to figure out what happened. We go to the next page and she looks around her environment. She sees everyone running around in disarray as she is getting contractions. She's about to give birth to the miracle baby, and she's looking around at nurses fleeing the scene. There's dismembered body parts laying around from those soldiers that Miracleman killed. And eventually Liz, through her excursion, if we go to the next page, we'll see that she stumbles across the ruins of Gargunza's shed, his little habitat. So that, again, indicating what had happened in the preceding issue, where on the next one, Nativity, we have Miracleman coming down from the heavens in a panel that just reeks of obviousness for a comic that is so entrenched in subtlety. This is a very on-the-nose image, but let's leave that for the commentary for after the recap. So basically, Liz is going to give birth, and Miracleman has to figure out the best way to get Liz to a place where they can accommodate for her birth. So then he does something ingenious, which is, after having a discussion with her, just explaining that he's all right, he puts her in a vehicle, an abandoned truck, and flies her over to a space away from this jungle area to a little bit more of hospitable grounds where we have some kind of like Superman Lois Lane moments of flying around, some moments of levity where they fly past a flock of flamingos and she's kind of taken by the beauty of it. And it's a very nice scene, but she's still having contractions, so baby's got to burst. We go to the next page, and then they settle down. Little discursion here. We actually are introduced to two characters that will play a greater importance further on. They exhibit signs of being able to control this nurse's mind because what they're trying to do is find information about one particular character, and who would that be? But that would be Kid Miracleman. They go inside Bates's mind and they see that he's alone. There's no evidence of the Kid Miracleman persona, so they leave, with Kid Miracleman emerging from the darkness afterwards, very confused, going, now what the hell were they? Breadcrumbs for what's going to happen later. Anyway, as for the warning, here you are, kids, full unmitigated childbirth taking place as Miracleman helps to deliver his child. There's some very interesting prose as he recounts not only his origin in multiple forms, but also the origin of this new life that's about to happen, his daughter. And there's a great contrast here of the spaceship crashing to Earth, Gargunza creating him through the remains of the alien, and then Mike Moran having memories of his mother passing away. And I love the confluence of all of these events culminating between the creation of Miracleman and now what's going to be Miracleman's daughter. We continue seeing these contrasting of scenes of his life as Miracleman, Mike Moran's kidnapping, along with the baby finally being delivered healthfully. Again, more contrast as the baby is taken out with some wonderful prose by Moore, just really punctuating what had taken place, coinciding the end of the previous reign of the story with the new, by having their daughter born, and as she is lovingly cradled in the arms of Liz and is about to suckle from her breast, the baby turns to the parents and goes, "Mama."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to say one thing before we go on. In fact, I'll give my little review.
Sure.
This is a fine issue, very bold to show childbirth in a superhero comic. I appreciate the ambition of this. It reminds me a lot of the plant sex scene from Swamp Thing in its own way. Maybe not quite as ambitious or radical, but still something that's pretty bold. I had never seen anything quite like it. I love that he told the artist, get in there, do not hesitate to show the nitty-gritty of childbirth. I appreciate that. And this is not a commentary about the childbirth itself. It's the art. I think it's ugly. There are some interesting panel layouts, and compositionally it's not bad, but I just think it is one of those things where it's an extreme attention to too much detail, to the part where faces begin looking distorted. There's inconsistencies even on this page between Liz as she's hunkered over with a heavily shadowed face compared to the next panel with her, where you wouldn't even be able to see it's the same character. Characters' faces appear monstrous and distorted and not in an artistically creative way. And then there's more cliched notes, like even on the next page, as mentioned, where Miracleman appears in a basket of light in the shape of a cross, and the title of this issue, Scenes from the Nativity. I feel that's a little bit cliched, and yeah, it just didn't sit well with me. It's a shame because I like the concept of this issue. I just didn't care for the artistic execution, and that's my review of this one.
So here's the thing. I've never loved Rick Veitch, but the one thing I will say about his art, even though, like you pointed out, when you zoom in close and look at these faces, some of them are grotesque, they're lumpy, ugly, but it's almost like if you step back, it looks like classic comic book art to me, almost like, I don't want to say Kurt Swan, but Rick Veitch did do some issues of Supreme, I believe, and it has that classic comic book feel. Like if you look at this page, if you step back, it looks like a classic comic book page. It's not till you getting close that you realize how, like you said, grotesque some of the faces are. So he definitely has his weaknesses, but I think he has his strengths, and I think that overall he's a better artist than Chuck Beacom. Nice Man, what do you think?
Well, artists like Rick Veitch confuse me because they're at times good and at times really bad, and I don't know whether he's good or not good.
Right.
I didn't read his Swamp Thing. I really wasn't interested. When he's good, he's good. I'm trying to think what's a good example of that. You didn't like the page, the splash page, Adam, the Scenes from the Nativity. But if Alan Moore is titling this Scenes from the Nativity, then he probably instructed him, make him appear before her, in some kind of like vision of like angelic vision with a kind of cross behind him. So maybe he's not to blame for that, like we said about, maybe Chuck Austen got great direction from Alan Moore. I can't imagine Alan Moore just said, do what you like. And this is a beautiful page. So this splash page, really, really beautiful. Well done. But then we have those other pages, and like the faces of the nurses, and it's monstrous, but not as in intentionally they're monsters. They're just really badly drawn, unless he was in a hurry. And at other times the features are very undistinguished. They lack definition. So I don't get it with him quite. Are you a good artist or not a good artist? It also reminds me a little bit of Alan Weiss. You know him? Weiss. He did an abominable Captain America issue and some Avengers covers. And I just think he's absolutely awful. But apparently he's quite well regarded, so I must be missing something. So here, I think at times I get reminded of Alan Weiss, and at other times I think, no, it's really quite good. The storytelling, of course, is very good. And I thought about the whole childbirth stuff. I think absolutely it should be shown. And if somebody said, oh, you can't show this in a comic book, why not? Well, children will be reading it. Okay. and then they can learn in a great way about childbirth, can't they? Well, that's the parents' job. Okay, this is a great way to show your children. Kid, read this comic. I mean, I would have. What the hell? What's the problem? This is how children are born. This is where they come from. But it's a naked woman, then okay. But this is life. What are you teaching your kid?
Nice man, I just want to say, to your point, I've heard more discussions over controversy of showing the birth in this issue than any of the graphic violence in the previous issue. So to your point, I think that stands exactly to your argument.
Great point. I will say, I agree with you 100%, but you got to admit, this panel...
Yes, it's a bit weak.
Quite funny. I mean, I'm no expert on childbirth. I'm not a doctor, and I've never, been privy to witnessing a birth in person. But would you just leave the baby's head sticking out like that?
And then kind of decapitated.
Yeah. Just a thought. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it looks quite horrific, and it looks decapitated.
Right.
I was at my daughter's birth. I saw her come out. I was the first, person that she saw, and she immediately cried. So, what can I say?
Off to a good start.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the way it's depicted here, with like a head hanging out. The head doesn't just hang out. The whole kind of body comes out. The head doesn't just lay there plopped out.
Right. I imagine that would be a little dangerous, but anyway.
Yeah, the body comes out, not just the head. You could say, no, the head emerges. Yeah, but it doesn't just hang there, like in my daughter's case.
Right.
To your point about the art, I think what we're seeing here is a failing of sequentiality, because we have the first panel with the crown emerging, then we have the head emerge, and so you're thinking, oh, logically we're seeing a progression of the baby exiting the womb. So the next panel should show more of the baby exiting the womb. So the next shot would logically be the baby maybe midway or completely out of the womb, but instead the head retains there. So what's the point of that sequential? Skip, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's
a funny panel, unintentionally funny panel. There's this baby head that looks like something from a horror movie, stuck there, lying there on the grass.
Yeah,
I know you talk about having certain panels you would love just to have hanging up in your house. Would that be one of them?
There you go.
Yeah, that page I would definitely frame and put in my hallway.
Yeah.
Even then, sorry, Mike, but that's not. I'm sorry, I've never seen any newborn. That looks like an old man. You could say, yeah, but newborns do look like old people, but they don't. That's not the face of a newborn. That's the face of, I don't know, a miniaturized like 68-year-old or something.
Well, anyway, we didn't touch on the interlude, but I thought it was very well done.
Oh yes.
And I love the way that he shows Kid Miracleman kind of hiding in the darkness, but then he comes back in at the end, and I think it's pretty intriguing that even Kid Miracleman doesn't know what's going on. Now, who the hell were they? That's actually even scary, because this guy's so powerful, and even he doesn't know what's going on. I think it's great.
Yes, very, very creepy, well laid out, well drawn. This is a good artist.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this page. Don't you like Rick Veitch? Yeah, it's good.
Okay, you know what? We should point out this was inked by Rick Bryant. Maybe he should take some of the blame, because I think a lot of these pages, like this page, is well done, but maybe it's the inking. If it was a better inker, maybe it would bring out the rest of the pages, and maybe that's why some of these faces are so sloppy, right?
Potentially. Maybe. I'm still seeing penciling that seems a bit grotesque. I don't know. I feel like certain artists, when they show Bates, rather than him being a disturbed 16-year-old or however old he's supposed to be, he looks like a wizened old man. Like there's so many wrinkles on his face in that sequence. Right. It's not ineffective. You see the torment that he's under. It's just... Right. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. He doesn't necessarily look like a kid, does he?
Right. No, I think he looks the same age as the baby in that one panel you pointed out.
Yes.
With that said, I know we're getting low on time, and we should have one last issue, so maybe we should just wrap that up and get
Yes,
to
yes.
it. And gentlemen, would you like me to recount this last one?
Sure.
Okay.
That's a
Well,
great cover, isn't it?
fantastic cover. And I'm just
It
going to.
was who did
Oh,
it?
yes.
This is
I know who did it, but why? I know who did it, but it's not quite coming to me.
I mean,
But great cover.
yeah. I'd have to Google it, but you can start talking, Adam, and I'll Google it.
Okay.
I'll race you.
Basically, what's happening is now we're introduced again to those two characters that entered into Kid Miracleman's mind. In that next panel, Mike, what happens is we're just going to be introduced from this as we're seeing they're obviously some sort of alien or otherworld entities, and they are searching for something. Now, in the next page, we see kind of an iteration of what was on the cover, which is this other temporal space. This is basically, remember, when it comes to Miracleman and any of these other creatures or entities, when they change into these superpowered beings, it's not that they transform, it's that there is this suspended dimension where their other body is just kept in stasis. And this is just a little pan into whatever this state is. So that's interesting to actually see this and to see the myriad of all these entities there, including in the corner, you'll notice Kid Miracleman. So going on, then we end up seeing more of these characters talking, alluding to what they're looking for. They could not find what they were looking for in the child Bates. However, there is an indication that there is something else they're looking for. And all the while, there is a cat that's been chasing a bird and has managed to kill it, giving a sense of foreboding about whatever this pair's mission is. Then we go from that to Miracleman engaging with his wife and his child. Miracleman finally manages to return home as Liz is having the baby suckle upon her, and Miracleman transforms back into Mike Moran. And at this point, because he's been in this suspended state with this injury, he's lost blood. His fingers are missing, and he collapses onto the ground. We see another little excursion between Bates and Kid Miracleman. And we're seeing some more manipulation by Kid Miracleman to his host, where basically Bates is telling him, no, I'm not going to give in to you. You're a bully, and I am going to fight for whatever it's worth. He starts talking. He finally comes out of the catatonia and manages to talk to the nurse. And he's saying to Kid Miracleman, see, I've beaten you. I can leave you locked up in the dark alone and forget about you. You're nothing but talk. And as he looks away in the streamscape, we see Kid Miracleman kind of looking mischievously as if, oh, yes, yeah, this is horrible. You've really beaten me, showing that he's really manipulating Bates. Then we get back to Liz and Mike as they're just talking about the child. They're discussing, did we actually hear the child say mama or not? That's unusual. We were both very tired and stressed out from the situation with Gargunza, so they are somewhat dismissing it, and they're having a good moment of reconciliation. I do love this because despite the discussion between Mike and Miracleman, despite the fact that we had this sort of theme of Miracleman basically had this baby with Liz and it's not Mike's baby, he wants to be the father, he wants to be present, he wants to maintain his relationship with Liz, and there is a type of subtle reconciliation between the two, so that's very good writing on their part. But then what happens is we cut over to a doctor's office where a redheaded doctor is talking to a patient, and she sees these two figures outside beginning to speak with her receptionist. And these were the figures we saw earlier, these obviously alien or otherworld entities. So the doctor picks up her phone and she is just engaging with her nurse, trying to find out information about who these people are. And it turns out they gave the wrong name when asking for her. So at this point, we hear a giant crash, and it appears that this doctor may actually be another one of these miracle people, another one of these super entities that these two unknown beings, these mysterious beings, are trying to hunt down. Anyway, as we're wrapping up the issue, Mike and Liz are having some more engagement. There are some strange things about the baby, which is coming to light. Apparently, the baby was so hungry that Liz decided to feed her canned food, despite only being a few days old, which they're both acknowledging is weird, but Liz is kind of dismissing it. Oh, she's a super baby. She's just hungry. It could be normal. But as Mike is looking over the baby and thinking about how wonderful she is, there's a comedic moment where the baby pulls one of his fingers into her mouth and bites down. And that's contrasted with the next page where these two mysterious beings find the discarded blue teeth of Cream as they're going around the site of Gargunza's encampment, and they see all the massacre left over by Miracleman. And essentially, as they engage with one another, they're trying to figure out if they will be able to find this life form. And they come to the conclusion that ultimately there's evidence that it was here. They have to go find Mike Moran. And then they dissipate, leaving the body of that doggy, the little Steppenwolf dog, alone in the swampland where the vast majority of the action took place in book 2.
The end. Before I even get to the story, I will point out the art is vastly improved, and I am going to credit John Ridgway for inking. I don't know if you noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
John Ridgway is the inker, and I think it's much better.
Yes, yeah.
I think the art's a lot better. Yeah. Now, the one thing I will say that this is a strange chapter in that it feels almost like an interlude. It doesn't feel like the end of book 2. It feels like kind of an in-between, so... But that's not a criticism at all. I really do like this. I love the introduction, the follow-up of the introduction of these two characters. The scene with Kid Miracleman is just brilliant. I mean, there's so many things Alan Moore does better than anyone else, but any other writer would have not have thought of this extra level of the fact that his other personality has tricked him into waking up and, talking to the nurse. The fact that we see him at the bottom here, we see that he's just acting is just brilliant. That extra level that no other writer, I don't think, would think of. It's great. And then I love this classic Alan Mooreism here where this dialogue is going on. Meanwhile, the baby is in the foreground. What is this thing called here? Whatever it's called.
The baby's toy?
Yeah, but using it almost like a what is that called? Like an abacus, right?
Yeah.
It's great. And then well, just everything. I just think it's a great issue. And and the introduction of what is it, Miracle Woman? I love this. Again, it just shows. I wanted to point this out last issue. There's this criticism of Alan Moore, and I remember Jim Shooter said it, and I think John Byrne said it. John Byrne described, I think it was either Miracleman or Watchmen, as basically nostalgia for something that you don't have nostalgia for, or something like that. But Alan Moore clearly does love superheroes. In the previous chapter, when he's carrying Liz in that car and they fly through that block of whatever they are, that takes a lot of imagination and love for the superhero genre to think, what would it really be like if you were a superhero and you could just fly through over the clouds through a flock of whatever these birds are. And then Liz's joy at experiencing that, the thought of putting her inside the car, because you always see in these comics, like the Teen Titans, they show up to fight some supervillain and one guy's carrying the other and the other one's on the other one's shoulders because they don't have a vehicle. It's just so stupid. But in this, he actually has the thought to stick her in the car and just carry the car because he's intelligent, right? But anyway, And then this scene here, what a great way to introduce this superhero in hiding with a secret identity. It's brilliant. I love it. Anyway, that's all I got to say. So I think this issue reminds me that if the art was more consistent in book 2, it'd be my memory of it would be better, and it'd be just as good as book 1 or 3. But anyway, nice man. What do you think?
Everything that both of you have just said.
Okay.
But if there's anything else for me to add, aren't you surprised by, like on the previous page or pages, I've never seen so much crammed dialogue in an Alan Moore comic.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost too much for the art. Look at it's all squeezed in. This is like Roy Thomas from the 1960s,
Right, right.
you know? And this is Alan Moore, who's usually quite minimalistic about these things.
Uh-huh.
And here it is, all that crammed dialogue. Why do we have so much? Why do you think?
Why?
Is it because
Is this a rhetorical
there's
question that you know the
no,
answer to?
it's a real question because is it because he just thinks, I've got to convey this information? The art hasn't really allowed him to do so. They don't have enough pages. Have you ever seen as much Alan Moore dialogue crammed in as this?
I'll say one thing. When it switched from the British reprints to the American comics, there was a slight disconnect between the size of the art and the size of the text, because comic books are drawn large and shrunk down, but in the UK they're slightly bigger when they're printed, right? A UK comic is bigger. I'm assuming this is done in a different size because I noticed that all of a sudden the text bubbles look bigger. So I think the British original pages, the font or whatever, the text was shrunk down, and this is more 1-to-1 ratio, so it looks a little bit off. So I think what you're seeing as too much text could actually 10% be blamed on the size of the font, maybe. Adamantium, what do you think?
I do agree. It's maybe, I don't think I would have thought of it until it was pointed out. It does seem very text heavy compared to what I'm used to, but we're also seeing this as an epilogue. This really isn't the end of the book in the sense where we've reached the climax. This is it, cliffhanger to the next. This is the epilogue where this is just setting up what's going to be going forward. Book one of Miracleman was this person discovers he has these powers and that he's actually these two different beings. And what does that mean for a normal man who discovers this? Book two is uncovering his origin and the reasons why he was created. And book three will see there's a double-pronged storyline between both Kid Miracleman and these mysterious agents that we're seeing that converge. So really, this could have been chapter 1 plus chapter 2 of Miracleman book 3, but at the very least, this keeps readers enticed for what's going to be going forward. To Mike's point, I do think the art is better. I think the inking probably helped tremendously. There are still occasions where there's some kind of lumpy, frumpy looking faces, but it's very far and few between. I think there's a lot more finesse, a lot more refinement on the faces and the expressions of characters. It works well. It feels very condensed, but I like where it's going. This is a serviceable issue, one that I'm not going to think too much on in retrospect, but one that gets the ball rolling towards its ultimate conclusion of the Moore run for this final book we're going to get to at some point. But no, I think this is a good cap off for what really proved Miracleman to be such an incredible book. Echoing your sentiments again, I wish this book had more consistent art throughout its run, but given the time frame in which this book was written over, that would have been near impossible to achieve.
True.
And I love these characters. They're like brother and sister. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just so tremendously enigmatic, creepy, scary, and just wonderful. This is kind of comic books I like to read. Even now, I would like to read this. If this were out now, I wouldn't hesitate.
Reading the Miracleman reprints that Marvel put out a few years ago, they're still better than, well, everything. I could say 100%, but I don't read every single comic, but certainly better than every superhero comic. There's almost nothing that comes close. But anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it is 9:41. Let's wrap it up in 4 minutes. Do we have any other thoughts on Miracleman Book 2?
Again, like you said, wish it could have been a bit more consistent with the art.
Me too.
But still, well worth having.
Yep. And and a good setup for what's to come with Book 3, because we all know what's coming with Book 3. But unfortunately, our listeners are going to have to wait a few weeks for us to get to book 3 because we've got a bunch of other UK comic books to read. And with that, any guesses? No,
Please, no. No, Neil.
Scroll Kill Crew returns. No. Zenith, book 3 by Grant Morrison and Steve Yowell. There you go, folks. It's going to be a long one. So, yeah, we'll try to keep it short. We're going to try and get it into one episode. But yes, join us for our next episode for Zenith book 3. Watch all of our episodes at comicbooksyndicate.com or youtube.com. I want to thank Nice Man and Adamantium for joining me as usual. Until the next time, see you later.